Hello friends, in this video we are diving right into the Godot engine. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the different versions of Godot and what to download, including the stable and experimental releases, and then get acquainted with the Godot editor by exploring the most important elements of that architecture. So this is going to be quite a high level video. We won't be doing any coding. So if you are a complete beginner to game engines and coding, rest assured we won't be taking on all of the complexity at once. I really want to highlight the areas and aspects of the engine that will be good to concentrate on and then flag what we'll explore at other times. All right, so before we jump into the editor itself, I do want to talk a little bit about the release cycle of Godot because it does work a little bit differently compared to a lot of the other major engines. For one, once you've downloaded Godot, it's not a typical installation process wherein you open the program and then are maybe greeted with an update whenever they have an update to release. Instead, each new version of Godot is a standalone download most of the time. So we often want to be returning to this page to check out the new releases fairly regularly because they are working on the engine very, very quickly. You will see that Godot actually releases new updates quite regularly. Now, not all of these are actually stable releases, and by stable releases, we generally mean that if you are working on your project and you update it to a new stable release, nothing should really break. Whereas some of the release candidates, beta releases, and then dev releases, those are a little bit more precarious. So while they contain exciting new features that the devs are actively working on and actively solving bugs for, it's not guaranteed that you're not going to get strange editor behavior or bugs in your game. So generally speaking, if you are just trying out the engine, experimenting, it's going to be fine to get whatever new version of Godot, including the sort of unstable and experimental releases. So if you see a feature that really excites you, then absolutely go ahead and have a play with it. But if you are working on commercial projects or creating content for Godot, generally you want that to be quite stable so that your audience or your users aren't going to be meeting breaks every time they are using it. So for that reason, I am going to be using the latest stable version of Godot throughout this series. It's actually very good timing because they just put out a new stable release for 4.6. All right, so when we open the Godot editor for the first time, we are greeted with this little launch page. So from here, we can see our existing projects. If, like my view right now, you don't have any, this is what you're going to be seeing. And from here, you can see it is prompting us to create a new project, import an existing, or open the asset library. And I do encourage you to have a look at the asset library. It's kind of the equivalent of the Unity asset store, and it contains a lot of community-led add-ons and code that you can use and put into your own projects. It's a great resource. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a new project. I'm going to call this Adventure Game 3D. As for the rest of these settings, we don't really have to pay that much attention to the renderer at this point. When you start to actually publish your projects, you might want to have a look at this to see if your project is compatible with the platforms that you are targeting. But for now, we are not going to really care about that. And plus, you can change this at a later stage. This one right here for version control metadata, you can see that by default, it selects Git. We will want to come back to this because source control is definitely something that you do want to have for your project. Not only is it good for having backups, but it is also good just for development. Oftentimes, we might make slight changes to our code. We can use source control to sort of systematically walk through those changes. So it is quite useful. But as I said, for now, we're going to just go ahead and create a new project. Okay, so when we open Godot, this is the base interface that we are greeted with. So we're going to go through a lot of these inspectors in turn, but it will probably make more sense when we have actual examples to inspect and look at. So for now, just take note down the bottom left in our file system, we really don't have much happening here because we don't have many resources as a base project. It's empty. We are given this little Godot icon, and if I double click on this, then we do have a little bit of information about it. It's a little texture. It's 128 by 128. We have the amount of memory it takes up. And later on, we can use this to decorate our room, but at the moment, it's just an image. So what we really want to do is try to build out a scene that we can run as a game or as a program. And indeed, if right now we press the play button up here, so run project or F5, this is going to run the project's main scene. So I recommend doing this just so that we can see iteratively as we change things, what happens to the project. So what do we have just as base? Well, when we click run, we are greeted with this. So it says no main scene has been defined, select one. And if we attempt to do this, you can see there's no actual scenes for us to choose. Obviously, this is because we don't have any. So that's the first thing that we're going to want to do. We are given some options to choose from, so a 2D scene, 3D, UI, or other node. We are going to be making a 3D game, so probably we're going to want to select this one, but just so that we can learn a little bit about node hierarchies, I'm going to select other node and have a little look at what our options are. So there are quite a lot, and if we toggle some of these drop downs, you can see the list is quite overwhelming, so I really don't want to dive in all at once. Let's just start with the absolute base node, so literally just node, and we're going to select that one, so we're going to go create. So not much has changed when we do that. You can see it has appeared up the top left in the scene hierarchy, and if I click on this one, you can see over on the right in the inspector, there are some properties about this node. So it has a process, a physics interpolation, auto-translate, editor description. So this doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but essentially this is what all other nodes in Godot are derived from. So all nodes can be processed. So at this point, if we select play, again, we are prompted to run a main scene. So we haven't actually selected one yet. So if we select or select current, we're still going to have to save this as a type of scene that the game can run. So at this point, we are going to have to give it a name. So this might be our world, our introduction, initialization. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to call this world and hit save. And then it's going to run this scene. As you can see, it's not very exciting. There's not much in this node. It's actually just looking like a gray box. Now, this is a little bit confusing because what we can see back here in the editor looks like a 3D plane, and it even has a gradient of colors that kind of looks like a horizon. So we're going from gray to this sort of sky color. So why can't we see that when we run the game? So this is actually because the scene itself, what is being produced by the editor, is slightly different. So the editor actually has preview sunlight and this preview environment. So if we untoggle those, we can actually see what the scene does look like. And you can see it's just a gray abyss. So to actually add those, we're going to have to do a little bit more work. All right, so next up, I want to add a different type of node. So we're going to come over to the scene hierarchy, right click, and hit add child nodes. This is going to add something new to the scene hierarchy. Again, we are greeted with all of the different types of nodes, but let's concentrate for now on just the node 3D. So this is one down in the hierarchy from our base node or our parent node. So double click or hit create. And then we can see that come up in the scene hierarchy here and also some properties about it. So over on the right side, we can see slightly different to our node. So it has some of the same properties, process, physics interpolation, and so on, but it also has a couple new ones. So it has transform and visibility. And in the editor itself, and I'm going to hit right click and then move my mouse down to change where our view is looking at, we can see a little gizmo, it's called, has appeared. So this is something that we can interact with in the editor to change properties about this object. So it has a transform, so a position, rotation, and scale in 3D space. So along the Y, Z, and X axes. It also has a rotation, so we can use these little rotating widgets here. It's a little bit hard to see what's actually happening, obviously, because this doesn't have a visual representation. And then also scale. It's quite similar to the base node in that it shares a lot of its properties, but it has a few more. And this is a fundamental property of Godot and object-oriented programming. So this is a way of organizing and structuring data in a way that is quite intuitive. It's also how I think we as humans learn and interpret the world. So we often describe objects in terms of categories. And as we learn new objects, so for example, if I introduce a new object to you, perhaps you've heard of a Quokka before, but if I'm trying to orient you to what a Quokka is, I might actually tell you about its categories in conceptual space. So I might say, actually, it's a marsupial, or it's a mammal, or it's an animal. And then that might tell you about what a quokka is. It has a little pouch for its young. It has fur. It's quite similar to a little wallaby or a kangaroo. They are quite distinct, for example, to similar creatures like rodents that also are quite furry and small and look a little bit similar, but they have distinctions. So, for example, that rodents do not have pouches for their young. So one of our problems right now is in this 3D world, when we run our game, where are we actually situated? Where is the viewport looking around this 3D world, around the horizon? Well, at the moment, we don't have anything like that. We don't have sort of eyes that we can look through. And in Godot, those eyes, or the view into the world, is going to be configured by a camera. So let's go add child, and we're going to have a look for camera. So that is within the node 3D hierarchy. So that means, remember, node 3D inherits from node, and then all of these children right here, they're going to inherit from node 3D. They're going to have a position, rotation, and scale, a transform. So let's scroll down and select camera 3D, and then create. And at this point, once again, let's hit play and see what's changed. So there's still nothing here. It's still coming up with just a grey screen. So we have in the editor a preview environment and lighting. So we can actually select this little drop down right here and translate what is currently a preview into the actual game. So add a sun to the scene, a lighting source, and an environment. So it does give us some properties that we can change right here. So I would recommend that you have a little play around. You can customize things like the color, the direction of the sun, and as well the horizon. And when you're done with that, we can hit add sun to scene and then come back into this drop down and add environment. So now when we run the game, we can see that our editor view quite clearly matches what is in the game. So we are getting an environment and lighting. If we click on these nodes as well, so as for directional light 3D, if we come over here into the inspector, we can see it does inherit from node, it inherits from node 3D, and then it inherits from something called visual instance 3D. So we've got some new properties here, and then light, and then a directional light. Whereas world environment, it inherits from node, and then it goes off on a different branch. So it's not the same as a node 3D type of object or class. It is its own thing. And indeed, if we add a new child and look at our little drop downs, we can see there it is. So already we have a lot of different types of nodes to configure. So we have an environment, we have lighting, we have our camera, and there are so many properties to tweak. But for now, I want to configure our world a little bit more. Let's make a couple objects, a couple 3D objects, so that we can get a better feel for the space. So let's come back over to our node 3D and add a child node. So it's not going to be immediately obvious how to create shapes. I kind of wish it was a little bit easier to create like a default cube, kind of like in Blender or in some of the other game engines. But the one that we actually want to look for is under Visual Instance 3D. Interestingly, if we click on this one, you can see that we can't actually create a Visual Instance 3D. And this kind of mirrors how, I guess, a lot of categories conceptually work. It's kind of like if I was trying to create an animal, right? So I can't actually just create an animal. There's no physical manifestation of animal. There are types of animals that I can create, a quokka, a kangaroo, a rat, but I can't just create an animal. So likewise, I can't just create a Visual Instance 3D. I need a specific type of Visual Instance 3D. So we need to walk further down this little hierarchy to actually find what we want. So again, a little bit overwhelming. What we actually want is a Geometry Instance 3D, and finally a Mesh Instance. So let's create one of those. And at first, we don't really see much changing here. We can see that just like the Node 3D and the camera, it has a transform, so we can select and move it. We can change its position, scale, and rotation. We can see, just like other Visual Instance 3Ds, it has this thing called layers. And then for geometry instances, we can see that it has a type of geometry. And then right at the top, it has a type of mesh. So again, we'll go into a lot of the complexity a bit later, but let's just try to get a little cube on the screen. So let's select mesh. So if you don't know, a mesh is the sort of 3D representation of an object. A mesh does not have to have textures that are associated with it, so it can just be the vertice representation of what an object is, and then the actual sort of materials that color and texturize and give it its distinct color properties are actually in a separate type of object. So if we just select mesh, we can see that we have lots of different kinds of mesh that this can be. It gives us some default. So we can select box, sphere, and so on. So go ahead, select any of these. I might actually go for sphere mesh. And there it is. If we go back and run the project at this point, so once more, we don't see anything. But remember, the camera itself is actually also at the exact same position as our object. So we are kind of seeing through it. So we are actually going to want to move the camera outside of this little space. So select the camera and we're going to move it out. So you can see kind of in the little gizmos here, this little pink outline where the camera is looking. And actually in the little preview, you can see right here that indeed that's going to be looking at the sphere. So have a little bit of fun, change the rotation, change the position, and give it another run. There we go. So there is our sphere. So we can continue adding meshes to our world and have a little bit of a play with all the different types of meshes and try to configure them. So we can build out our world space just with little MeshInstance 3Ds, but in the coming videos, of course, we're going to replace this with actual assets, actual 3D models with more complex textures. Another fun thing that you can do is drag over the little texture that is built into Godot onto the meshes itself, and that's going to give it a little appearance of the Godot logo. So next time we're going to create our little player object and be able to control it around a world with 3D physics. So it's going to be able to just move, jump, respond to gravity and other objects. So thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.